Good morning and welcome to the History Help channel. I'm Usha, who will be teaching you about the historical method and historiography. So, we are covering historical method and historiography in four sections: history, research, historiography, and Indian historiography. Today, we'll only be dealing with history section and looking into the relationship of history with different social sciences. Both history and social sciences are they look into mankind and life, but social sciences has a the approaches of both history and social sciences is different. But let's look into each of the social sciences, be it geography, economics, or political science, with respect to their relationship with the history. Because history is a very composite subject, so there is a dependency of all social sciences with history, and history has a lot of relationship with other social sciences. So, history and geography. So, when it comes to history and geography, there is a saying that geography is the eye of history. The other eye of history is chronology. Second quote is, if geography is the stage, history is the drama. So, so much close the relationship between geography and history is in the studies. If you look into, let's take examples, a few examples. Maps, whatever we create, that is geography. If you look into the explorations that has been done, for example, African explorations or explorations of China, Japan, or getting into America, what all these explorations have led to? They were all geographical explorations. But ultimately, what did they lead to? They led to more colonies being set up or settlements happening. They led to imperialism. They led to economic trade. So, all these geographical explorations have created history. Let us take a look into the third example, terrain. So, suppose let it be valleys or mountains. They have also changed history. They are all geographic terrain, but they have all changed history. For example, Himalayas. It has prevented a lot of invasions into Indian subcontinent. Or if you take into Khyber passes, there has been a slow trickle of trade and even invasions through such passes. Even locations like Panipat or Waterloo, they have also been the places for wars and battlefields. So you have Battle of Panipat. So in this way, geography is linked to history. There is also a theory called climatic theory, which says that climate, this moisture, weather, all of them affect and create history. So this is the dependency of history and geography with each other. Next, we look into history and politics. History and politics have always been in hand to hand. In fact, till the 19th century, history was politics itself. That is why Seeley says all history is past politics. So, history depends on politics a lot. How? Whatever events we are narrating, the political science gives it a meaning. It tells you what kings, it tells you what time period, it tells you what events, and all that. Secondly, it also talks about history without knowing the fundamentals of political science, of laws, rules, regulations, and all. You won't be able to actually narrate the history properly. So, history has to learn a little bit about or know a little bit about the fundamentals of organizations, fundamentals of state, fundamentals of rules, or the statesmen, and all that. So this and history depends on politics further. Any political leader will make a lot of changes, which creates history. For example, Mahatma Gandhi's ideas of non-cooperation, civil disobedience, quit India has led to a lot of changes in history. It has created history. Similarly, political leaders can make or break wars. So all this depends on history is dependent on history. Now let us look it into the other way around. Politics too depends on history. For example, if you see Aristotle, Plato, and all, they all came up with their political ideas. How did they come up? They looked into the society's history. So they got their ideas looking into the states, the rule, democracy rule, or be it monarchy, oligarchy, anything. So they derived their ideas from looking into the history of society. Even now, if you the second point is, even now if you look into institutions, if you want to make changes in institutions, if you want to make changes in rules and laws, you should know its fundamental. You should know its origin. You should know its history of institutions. That is what politics has a dependency on history. Now, let us look into history and sociology. Sociology is the study of society. So that is why they say sociology is the atoms in which history is built. Because without society's complex changes, or there is a quote of history that it's all events related with respect to, or story with respect. History is nothing but a story of the society. So, sociology or the society of man, his daily life, his economic, this one, all is very much closely linked with history. So, history depends on sociology. How? Again, when you are narrating events, looking into social, society, culture gives it a meaning. You simply can't keep narrating the chronology of events. You need some background, you need some kind of pattern. That is what sociology tells you. Also, origins. If you want to know about certain customs, patterns, all that, history will do it beautifully with the origins. Sociology too depends on history. How? If you want see, sociology has to tell about the culture of institutions. For that, it has to go back to the origins of the institution, how the institution developed. So all that study has to be done. That's how sociology depends on history. Secondly, it also tells about family. When it talks about family, also it has to know its origins, the customs. So once again, sociology too depends on history. Coming to history and economics, once again, economics did not play a very prominent role, but after the leaders like Marx or Hegel, it took more importance. Even after the 1917 Russian Revolution, economics players started playing a lot of important role. In fact, be it slave trade, imperialism, monarchy, all of them or business or international laws or trade, all of them started having an economic trigger behind it. So, if you take international trade, it has an economic trigger. If you talk about colonialism, there is an economic trigger. There may be a war that one of the factors would be economic. So, in history, the economic triggers also played a very important role. Not only that, if you look into the present scope, if you look into the present scope, even today we make a lot of deals and we talk about statesmen and all of that looking into economic. Cold War was economic reason. One of them was economic reasons. So these are the dependency of history with economics. History and literature. In history and literature, what we see is history and literature are very closely tied. In fact, if you remove literature, history will be very dull and boring. And you know what? Any historian will always look back, but all the gaps will not be filled with sources. So he has to use his imagination. He has to think what is necessary to fill up the gaps. So literature is very important. History can't be science alone. So, history uses literature to make things interesting. For example, the sword of Tipu Sultan, it makes history interesting. History and psychology. Now, psychology too has a lot of impact on history. See, whether it's wars or the effects of wars, all of them are psychology. What happened after the war? That is psychology. How the man is thinking, how the man is dealing with the effects of the war, even the causes of war. Everything has mental, mind, and psychological factors in it. If you look into the historian bias, that is the third point. Even when a historian is writing, there is a bias in his writing. It depends on his background. If I am writing history, I'll write it differently. If you are writing history, you will write it differently. So there is a bias. Once again, psychology plays an important role. How does history depend on how does psychology depend on history? History gives a lot of stories and material for psychologists. So, for every kind of behavior, for every kind of pattern, you have a historical event. So, psychology too benefits from history. The last two we study is history with statistics and history's relationship with ethics. Now, statistics makes things easier. Instead of telling more or less, history can actually give 30%, 40% data. That is due to statistics. History and ethics. Ethics is all value judgment. You say this is good, this is bad, moral values and all. History too has the ability to tell about real or right, wrong, and right or wrong. How? Because it has lot of experience, a lot of stories, and lot of data in it. So it can it can predict, or it can tell moral values. So this is how history is a complex subject dealing with so many social science branches. In the next video, we will look into history's relationship with other sciences. Thank you.